But again, my name is Jena, and I am the Education and Community Engagement Manager here at Donorbox. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Donorbox or not totally familiar, Donorbox helps nonprofits of all sizes grow and thrive. So we are more than just a platform. We truly aim to be a partner who truly understands what it takes to create lasting impact in the areas that you are passionate and that you are serving. So from easy to use fundraising tools to expert support through webinars and ebooks and all sorts of good stuff, we make it easy to find new donors, connect with them like never before, and create steady revenue for your organization and your cause so that you can build a sustainable future, which is something that I know is close to all of your hearts. So if you'd like to learn more or join over 80,000 nonprofits that have raised $2 billion to date, you can check us out at donorbox.org, www.donorbox.org. I am really excited to dive into how to create an actionable and impactful 2025 game plan for your nonprofit. So whether your focus is on leveling up your fundraising programs, strengthening your donor relations, or getting more organized just to make a bigger impact in your area, today's session is all about providing you with practical tools and strategies that you can start using right away. And actually, I'll save this for the agenda. And I do want to hear from all of you as we go. So feel free to drop your questions in that questions box there, and chime in with your insights in the chat. And I want to, hear from you guys as well. I want it to be a two-way conversation. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the agenda. We are covering a lot today, and we're going to be spanning a good handful of topics. And what I want for you to go into this with is that this is a blueprint. This is something that you will spend time to work on. So while you may feel like I am throwing a lot of topics and things to consider at you, this is your chance to hold yourself accountable and set aside time to really work on these items to set yourself up for a really great year of fundraising. So here is the plan. We will start with a very quick, I promise, conversation about donation receipts and how you can tie this up, tie your previous year up. I know that it is tax season for a lot of folks. And caveat here is I am in the States, and I know many of you are located in Canada. So I have kept this very brief, but I do have some extra resources for you because I am not an expert when it comes to the Canadian side of these things, but I do have a good template. Next, we will dive into goal setting and creating a communications plan for the year ahead so that you're keeping your community engaged. And then we will share some trends to keep in mind as you shape your strategies for 2025. And I'm pretty sure I can see the chat coming in from folks, but give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know how you're feeling, or send me an emoji, or let me know how you're feeling about this year of fundraising. And Chiara, actually, I don't know if I can see people's chats. Oh, I can see yours.
Yeah, not everyone might have that functionality. So I invite you, if you have any comments throughout this presentation, just write us in the question box, which is with the question marks, and then I'll summarize your feedback as we go along, and we'll keep it for the Q&A.
Love it. Love it. That sounds good. All right. Well, we got a melty face from CSI, but we're here to make it better. So, all right, you have made it through the sprint, you guys. Through year end, Q4 was very busy, and you're finally starting to get used to writing 2025 instead of 2024 on everything. And then, bam, it's time for tax receipts, right? There's no rest for the weary. And your year-end tax receipt or donation receipt, whatever you want to call it, is an overall formal acknowledgement of every donation given over the course of the year. In the US, for example, there's a legal requirement that 501c3 organizations recognize all donations of more than $250. However, in Canada, issuing tax receipts is not a legal requirement for registered charities, but if you do use them, doing so in compliance with the CRA regulations is absolutely essential so that donors can benefit from those tax credits. And we just have a responsibility in general to our donors to send them acknowledgments for their contributions. And I think it's a good practice to recognize all gifts, whether it's required or not just over a certain dollar amount either. This is a really great opportunity to set the stage for the coming year of gift giving, right? We want to set 2025 of a tone of generosity. And this is why I'm keeping this section quick. A tax receipt can be boring for sure, but since you're already putting in the time and effort to creating something to share with your donor, it's a good opportunity to make your donor feel your gratitude and show some impact of how their gift was put to work for the better. So here's what's required for cash donations. You obviously want to clearly state an official receipt for income tax purpose, that it's an official receipt for income tax purposes. You want to include your charity's name, your address, and the CREA registration number. Add the receipt's unique serial number, the date the gift was received, and the date the gift receipt was issued. And I do want to add a note. A lot of you may still be getting year-end donation receipts sent in the mail, or you got them that were sent in December and you received them in January. Pay very close attention to the date in which that check was written, right? Because you don't want to make the mistake of accounting that for 2025 when it's a 2024 gift. Obviously, you want to provide the donor's full name and address, state the donation amount along with any benefit the donor received and the eligible gift amount. And then finally, it must have the authorized signature and the CRA's name and website address. For non-cash gifts, also include the date of the receipt, a brief description of the date, and if appraised, the appraiser's name and address as well. And of course, make sure that all these receipts are legible, not easily altered, and that you retain these for audit purposes as well. Very quick overview, but I do want to mention that tools like Donorbox can help automate compliance so that it is just an easy click, set it and forget it, saving you time and making sure that your receipts are accurate. So for more details, I have linked a couple of helpful links in the Google folder that is pinned in the chat here. That includes templates, how-tos, official guidelines for the US and Canada, and all sorts of goodies that we're going to be going over for today's session. But the reason why I especially wanted to review this tax receipt section is because it is such a great place to add a personal touch. I am all about donor stewardship, all about donor engagement. A brief note of gratitude, an image, or a story of the impact that they made with their gift can really make your receipt stand out. You do not have to keep it generic so long as you include all of the required fields. And some organizations even add a giving appeal along with their tax receipts, asking donors to renew their past support for the new year. And I think that this is one of the only times that it is absolutely okay to add an ask alongside your thanks, especially since the receipt is a tangible reminder of the donor's generosity and their impact on your mission, right? You were already reaching out to them. So why not encourage them to keep the momentum going, right? So including just a secondary page, whether you're sending a physical piece of mail or an email, including a secondary page to show the impact, making sure that the ask is aligned with gratitude and showing their impact of their past gifts. It won't feel pushy, it will feel natural, right? So something as simple as, thanks to your support, 200 children had access to after school programs this year, right? Last year, you made that possible. If you're ready to make an even bigger difference this year, renewing your support can transform even more lives in 2025. So for just $25 or $50, whatever that is, you can provide school supplies and educational resources to a child in need. Every gift counts. Scan the QR code to give today, right? Renew your impact. That would work really well. So please think about that as you're tying up your tax receipts and how you can insert a little gratitude and a little ask inside of that as well. Okay, now I want to look into 2025. But in order to look ahead, we actually need to start by looking back. We often talk loosely about goals, right? But I want you to think about where they fit in your overall plan for the year, right? So I've broken this down a little bit. This is an illustration to help explain what I'm talking about. When we talk about planning, we group together so many elements. Your mission informs the goals for the plan, specifically what you want to accomplish, right? And then your tactics include the types of fundraising to be used, whether that's peer-to-peer or direct mail, events, corporate giving, etc. And all of these tactics dictate the financial resources, which is your budget. And a timeline gives you a projection of how long it will take to meet your goals. So whether your nonprofit is setting far-stretched goals, far-stretched yearly goals, or short-term campaign goals, setting and meeting fundraising goals can be complex, right? It certainly can be. And that's what I want to try to break down today. So let's move into reviewing some goals. 2024 was a heck of a year, right? Maybe you made some really thorough goals and can have something concrete to review. Maybe you just threw a bunch of activities and communications together just to see what worked and what didn't, and that's okay too. But I want you to take some intentional time now with your team to have a year in review meeting. I know we are at the end of January, but it is certainly not too late, and better later than never, right? So maybe grab a cup of coffee or sit around a table or meet across your computer screens as we're doing now to talk about what worked and what didn't. And if you are a one-person operation, you can ask a board member or one of your most dedicated volunteers to join you, right? Whoever is the most trusted and someone that you share this passion with. And you want to pull your year-over-year data, look at where you achieve success, and take an honest look at your weaknesses, right? You do not want to skip overlooking any mistakes, right? You want to learn from them so that you are not apt to repeat them. Now, what you see on the screen here is a worksheet that can be used to break down each goal specifically. Again, you're going to find this in the Google folder that is pinned in the chat there. And as we walk through this, I want you to consider, did you achieve your goal last year? What was the result? What went well? What could you improve? And then how will you adjust this goal for 2025? Will you cast it aside altogether? Will you tweak it and try it again? Will you build on it? So keep all of those things in mind. Now I'm going to break this down a little bit. Now, as you consider what you will do differently next year, I also want you to consider how you will measure it. So it's always great practice to keep things smart, right? I'm sure you're all familiar with SMART goals. So specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So how do we begin? Let's start with this simple goal, right? Several of our DonorBox customers want to improve donor relations. So let's put that goal here. I want to improve donor relations. And if you feel like dropping what your goal is for 2025, your basic goal, feel free to do that as well. Now, I want to make that a SMART goal. So rather than saying, I want to improve donor relations, you could say, I want to personally call all first-time donors who give $100 or more every Friday in 2025, right? So you will notice that the first statement that I gave was overall vague, right? It also does not set a goal timeline, making it more difficult to track consistently. But the second goal is SMART. So it's very specific, it's measurable. I can pull a quick report to see who falls within that criteria every week. It's actionable. I can check it off my to-do list every week, which always feels good. And it's realistic, right? It's not going to tap out my capacity. It's not going to tap out my team's capacity. And it is time-bound every Friday, all year long. Got it? Okay, let's try another one. The vague goal is, I want to secure more corporate sponsorships. The SMART goal is, I want to secure 5 new corporate sponsorships worth $10,000 each by the end of 2025 by creating a sponsorship package, hosting a corporate networking breakfast, and reaching out to 15 local businesses per quarter. So it's specific, right? You've got your clear target of 5 sponsors and the methods to achieve it. You can measure it, right? Track those sponsorships secured and the value of each. And it's actionable. It's a step-by-step process as far as creating a package, the event, the outreach, right? and it's realistic. I think aiming for 5 sponsors with targeted outreach is pretty reasonable. And you've got the deadline of the end of 2025. The best plans, you guys, are organized, actionable, and easy to monitor. All right, so let me give you another look at that worksheet. Take a look at this. Again, set aside time this week that is saved in the Google folder for you to download your own copy and work through this. Really spend some time reflecting. All right, so now as we think about 2025, I want to move on to the next template. And again, in your Google folder, this is our 2025 goal planner. So I've created some space for you to brainstorm here. Feel free to break out of this document and build out space where you need elsewhere. You can use an Excel spreadsheet or a notepad, or have a brainstorming session and use an easel pad for each category, whatever works for you. I'm a sticky note person. I have so many sticky notes behind my computer screen here, but whatever works, right? So I want to walk through this. And first, let's tackle the big one, dollars, right? You joined this webinar, you saw fundraising game plans, something resonated in you about your fundraising program, right? Dollars is a big, important part of fundraising, certainly. So you will need your data to help you go deeper here, right? So in this space, you want to consider, how much did you raise last year? How do you want to adjust that to this year's goal, right? So you want to compare your giving totals to last year and the previous 2 or 3 fiscal years if you can. Now, I've had some questions. What if I'm a brand new org? I've not fundraised before, but you still want to set goals. Look at some benchmark reports. Look at organizations that are of similar size, that have similar causes, and see what they're fundraising from year to year, right? And set that as a goal, or adjust based on your staff size or your specific community or whatever that may be. You can certainly benchmark, and there are lots of great benchmark reports that you can refer to. And meet with other nonprofits with the same cause, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help you with that. All right, so beyond that, what do month-to-month giving totals look like year to year if you have that data? What was your average size gift, right? What is your predictable monthly income from your monthly donors? Do you have monthly donors? Do you accept pledges? And if so, you want to analyze your pledge amounts, pledge completion, and past due statuses. So for this sample, I'm going to keep it simple, but you will certainly spend some time finding the right fit for your organization. Let's say that we want to increase overall dollars raised by 20%. All right, then we want to increase our average gift from $100 to $150. And now on to donors. I want you to ask this. What is your donor retention? And if you're not sure what your donor retention rate is, I've linked a handy donor retention rate calculator that is in the helpful links document that is pinned to this Google Doc. So go ahead and look for that. So how many new donors did you have in 2024? How many new folks did you bring in to support your cause? Who are your most loyal donors? Who are they? What inspired them to give? Was it a particular appeal or a fundraising campaign or a challenge or a project? Consider that, right? And then you can look deeper into the data too, like, did last year's first-time donors choose to give again this year? So in this example, we will say that we want to increase donor retention from 25% to 40%. Right? And then we will increase the number of monthly donors from 15 to 40. We all want that dependable, sustainable revenue, and monthly donors is a great way to retain. And then we want to acquire 10 new donors per month. Now, remember, these are goals. So we want to identify some tactics to make this happen, right? So as we move on to budget, you might consider, do we have the staff we need to make this happen? What tools could help us do our job better? Do we need a donor database? Do we have a good CRM? Are we using QuickBooks? Anything that can help you do your job better. Where did we spend money last year, and where do we need to reallocate it moving forward? So you will plan to do this for each of these sections. So again, I've provided a few for you to get started, just to brainstorm, but you have areas that are specific to your organization. So get creative here. Think through the number of volunteers or peer-to-peer fundraisers you mobilized last year, or even how many social media shares you had. Think outside of the box a little when you build this out, okay? Now, like I mentioned earlier, you want to get buy-in from your staff and the board on these goals. So once you've built them out, you want to post them, report on them monthly, and keep them in the forefront of your work every day. And also take time to consider if you have the resources from your entire team to be successful this year, but definitely keep these at the forefront of everything that you do. Okay, we often get questions about planning out a communications calendar for organizations. Consistent communication and engagement is a huge part of building a community of successful fundraising, right? So I thought we'd take a few minutes just to talk through an easy idea to get started mapping out your course of action. So I want to start at the very beginning. However, I'm sure that many of you have heard about the cycle of fundraising. The fundraising cycle is made up of these important steps that can impact your success in terms of fundraising. So these steps traditionally include identification, cultivation, solicitation, and recognition, right? However, we've created our own version, which is the 5 A's of awesome fundraising, because we love alliteration, just sticks in your brain. So that is attract, ask, acknowledge, account, and do it again and again. We could go deep here. I have whole webinars just on this cycle, but for the sake of time, we will not. I will just give you the high level overview. So obviously the first one is attract. That is attract new supporters to your organization. Pretty straightforward, right? And then you ask them to come alongside you by giving. Then you promptly acknowledge their contributions. You account for your donations. And then you do it again and again, right? Commonly, people think that fundraising is isolated to just asking for money, but the actual ask of fundraising takes only about 10 or 15% or even less of the overall fundraising time. What actually takes the most time is thanking, communicating with, and reporting to and acknowledging your donors. And this is the most important part, right? Most of the effort is before and after we ever ask for money. And so many organizations do not consistently communicate with donors because many lack a schedule for emails and phone calls and social media updates. But communicating regularly is absolutely the key to building strong donor relationships. And organizations who do this well will truly stand out. So it should absolutely be integral to your communications plan, right? You have a cause that is deeply important to you, that is probably deeply important to the world, and you want to build trust with people. And the best way to do that is by communicating with them, right? You don't ever just start by asking for money. You're creating a relationship. And that's what this touchpoint timeline is all about. So with keeping the 5 A's in our mind, I want to introduce this next template. I have used this method frequently as my own communications plan. It is a good exercise, but it's also easy to keep posted somewhere to see what's ahead. And again, we have a copy of this for you to keep in the Google folder. So I want to go ahead and walk through a sample touchpoint timeline together. So first, we want to describe the activity. In this case, we will plan some ongoing donor phone calls. So the cycle stage for this will be acknowledge, right? Our audience is going to be first-time donors. I would love a phone call if I was a first-time donor to our organization. And then let's add in our lapsed donors who renew this year. Maybe they didn't give in 2024 and they've already given in 2025. You got to give those people a call. And then don't forget your big donors, right? Who will you call? Who are your big donors? Gifts above $500, maybe above $1,000, more or less. Determine that, right? And then in this scenario, we will also call our donors who just started a recurring monthly gift. So in this case, our dates are going to be ongoing since we'll be tackling this throughout the year. So obviously we'll be using the phone, right? Most likely we'll be leaving a few voicemail messages as well, but that's the gist of it, right? Pretty simple. So I want to walk through another one. Maybe we'll create a donor survey. That's our next task. So the cycle stage for this is attract, because it can be a means to capture the attention and interest of both existing and potential new supporters by involving them in your organization's activities and decision-making processes. So in this case, we're going to send these to last year's donors. So this would include one-time and monthly donors. That we're going to send it to lapsed donors, so those donors who gave 2 or 3 years ago but didn't give last year. And then we're going to start this project on February 15th. And then we'll close it on February 28th. And then we'll have the survey open for 2 weeks, right? Simple. And this will be completed digitally using a form creator like Jotform or SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, whatever you're using. And so you will distribute that via email. Right? You got it? Okay, here's another example for all of us. One more. This time we'll create an ask for our communications plan. So one last example. Oh, there we go. We might fill in the remainder of this chart with an impact report. So our cycle stage there is account, right? Because we're accounting for their gifts. And then after that, maybe we'll be communicating with them about special programs, volunteer opportunities, which is attract, before asking again. So you'll keep the cycle going again and again over the entire year. That makes sense? So think about the programs that you have, that you'll be rolling out this year, or big initiatives. How can you create communications plan, a touch point timeline for each of those things, right? Do you have a new program you're rolling out and you need volunteers or you need support? Maybe you need supplies. What is the touch point that you can write into this timeline to make that happen? This is such a simple tool, you guys. You can certainly make this more complex in a spreadsheet or whatever works best for you. And you can add details like budget or actual cost or return on investment when you build this out. But regardless of what you use, again, this is super important. Keep it in front of you. There's a theme here. Keep these things in front of you, right? Work with others on this and hold each other accountable and make it a standing agenda item at your regular meetings and keep them at the forefront of your daily and weekly plans. Oh, and actually, I almost forgot. I am also giving you a copy of the weekly planner I have personally used throughout the years. So I hope you find it helpful. And this is linked in the Google folder as well, just to keep you organized. Okay, I know that was a lot to digest already. And again, my hope is for you to take these slides, take these resources that I've linked, take this recording, and really spend your time working through these data points, really spelling out your goals and filling out these spreadsheets so that in a couple of weeks, you have a really solid plan to move forward with confidence, right? So to finish up today, I want to take a look ahead at some of the key fundraising trends that are shaping 2025. These are trends that can help you stay ahead of the curve as you set your nonprofit up for success in the coming year. We have an amazing research team on the Donorbox team, and they have pulled all sorts of nonprofit reports and stats and trends to really find what will be the most relevant in this year. And this is what they dug up. So let's dive in with the first trend, making the most of individual giving. over the past few years, we've seen a consistent decline in individual giving. So for example, when adjusted for inflation, giving in 2023 was actually down by 2.4%. And that's made a lot of fundraisers nervous. I know it has, and understandably so. It's felt like individual giving is becoming less reliable. But there is some good news for 2025. According to the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, individual giving is expected to grow by 3.4% this year. That is great news, right? And with inflation slowing down, we might actually see some stability or even growth in donor contributions. So what does this mean for your fundraising strategy? It means that 2025 is the year to focus on maximizing your existing and new individual donors. One of the smartest ways to do that is by revamping or building out your recurring giving program. Recurring donors are incredibly valuable. They give up to 42% more each year than one-time donors do, and they are far more loyal with a 78% retention rate, and that is compared to the industry average of just 35%. Wouldn't you rather retain 78% of your donors versus 35? Yeah, right? So if you invest in your recurring giving program, you are absolutely setting yourself up for steady, sustainable funding, not just next year, but long term. One of my favorite recurring program influencers, I guess, that I follow is Dana Snyder on LinkedIn. She has amazing content on monthly giving, and she is really great at building out programs to uplift your recurring giving program. So I definitely recommend giving her a follow, Dana Snyder on LinkedIn. She is wonderful. So number 2, data-driven fundraising. Do you know which metrics you need to track as a fundraiser? Well, your average ROI per donor or the conversion rate for your last campaign. Do you know any of those, right? You want to know those things. We live in a world that is fueled by data. We have more and more access to analytics tools and tracking than ever before. And if you aren't focusing on data-driven fundraising in 2025, you could be missing out on some key ways to grow your nonprofit. A McKinsey study of all studies showed that businesses using data effectively outperformed competitors by up to 20%. So the same potential exists for nonprofits, absolutely. Focusing on data really gives you a competitive edge through better decision making, more efficient fundraising processes, and a better understanding of your donors and of your community and of their needs, right? So to get started, you need the right tools. You need to upgrade your tracking and analytics to see how donors engage with your website and your donation forms. A CRM with built-in analytics like Donorbox CRM, for example, can help you track trends and even use reporting features to create visual reports. You can also consider surveying your donors to understand their preferences, their interests, their concerns, right? So that you can learn how they want to serve your mission and your cause better. So again, like I said, create free surveys online with Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, whatever that may be. That is a part of collecting data. And the next, you need a way to apply all of your learnings from this new data, right? So again, getting buy-in from your staff, your board, and your volunteers, you want to cultivate a culture. Focus on data by regularly evaluating your strategies and processes with any new information that you are getting. So try setting up quarterly meetings with key stakeholders to review your progress, discuss any changes that you'd like to make, and review any new feedback that you've gotten from your community. It just takes a couple of powerful tools and a little bit of elbow grease. I know it can sound intimidating, analytics tools, but it just takes a little bit of time to set up, and your fundraising can really, really grow more data-driven in 2025. All right, number 3 is tools for digital engagement. Digital communication. We were just talking about communications, but digital communication has been a game changer for nonprofits for a long time. Blogs, emails, social media. They've been driving donations for years. They've been driving a sense of community for years, right? And that's not slowing down in 2025. The big shift, though, is definitely the rise of automated tools to make this easier and more effective, right? So 2025 will be all about finding efficient effective ways to engage your donors virtually. But it's important to remember that donors are still craving authenticity, meaning you can't completely erase the human element of your fundraising. A lot of folks are using AI, and it is an excellent tool, but you want to be authentic and genuine and show up that way. So you want to invest in tools like social media scheduling tools like Hootsuite that allow you to build up your posts ahead of time and plan ahead. And email marketing platforms like Donorbox email marketing that integrate seamlessly with your data in your CRM already so that you can segment without manual list pulling. That's a big thing, right? If you are talking to everyone, you are truly not talking to anyone. So using tools to segment your donors based on demographics, interests, programs that they've expressed interest in will make a really big difference in engagement. And then also with design tools like Canva really can make your graphics pop. And if you're not already using Canva, I highly suggest applying for the Canva for Nonprofit program. It is free for nonprofits to use. Digital engagement is not just a trend, it is absolutely the backbone of modern fundraising. So you want to make sure that your nonprofit is engaging in these channels and that you're ready to harness its full potential with easy ways to make it easier. Right? We're almost there, you guys. And trend number 4 is planned giving. Yes, still, I know. The great wealth transfer is happening right now. As baby boomers pass on their wealth, trillions of dollars are being passed down, trillions of dollars, with an estimated $124 trillion is passed to transfer over the next 23 years, with around 18 trillion expected to go to nonprofits. This is a huge opportunity for nonprofits, but it's not just about big estates, right? It's also about the next generation. More heirs mean more potential major donors, more advocates for your cause, right? So what does this mean for your nonprofit? 2048 seems like a long time away for sure, but it's important to remember that the great wealth transfer is ongoing and nonprofits are already benefiting from it. So if you don't have a planned giving program, I would suggest that you start researching how to build one as soon as possible. This type of fundraising focuses on building relationships with donors now so that they will consider leaving their assets to your organization later. It's a way for you to capitalize on donor loyalty while receiving larger gifts, right? Planned gifts are often treated as welcome surprises, right? Instead of like an integral part of your contributed income. But it's a great way to dedicate your resources, right? You should also think about the other side, like I said, of the wealth transfer coin, which is younger people who now have access to wealth and who want to fund charities that they are passionate about. Young people are very passionate. They are amazing advocates. And in practice, this looks like cultivating relationships with millennials and Gen Z donors through targeted programming and personalized communication. It also looks like accepting alternative currencies, right? Stock donations, crypto, which younger donors are interested in giving. So take a look at this. Do not put it off for another year. Prioritize your planned giving and targeted outreach so that you don't miss out on this massive transfer of wealth. And finally, number 5 for you guys is corporate sponsorships and giving. Corporate giving is still growing and it is slowing down a bit. In 2025, is expected to grow by just 2.6%, which is below the historical average. But that said, there's still growth happening, especially in one key area, and that is corporate social responsibility, CSR, y'all. 80% of Fortune 500 and S&P companies now issue CSR reports. For these companies, CSR isn't just a nice to have, it is a must, it is a requirement. So what does this mean for you, right? Say it with me. 2025 is the year to build strong corporate sponsorships. Spend some time this year pulling together proposals to partner with companies in your city or beyond who have shown an interest in causes similar to yours, a dedication, right? And even those who haven't. Corporate partnerships come in all sorts of models, from event sponsorships to grants to even workplace giving programs, volunteering on the ground. So you can find what works best for your organization. And beyond these partnerships, matching gifts are an easy way for you to profit from corporate generosity. 65% of corporate Fortune 500 companies offer matching gift programs these days, and chances are your donors can double their impact by seeing if their employer matches those gifts. So by integrating with platforms like Double the Donation, for example, donors can simply submit their matching gift information right there on your donation form to receive a follow-up communication about how to submit their matching gift. And you can learn more about that. I've added that in our helpful links document as well. But if you're not using matching gifts, you're truly leaving money on the table. All right, you guys, I always aim to leave these sessions with practical actions, something that you can do right away to set you up for success this year. And I've said it many times throughout the session already. First, I want you to take some time to review 2024. I know things in 2025 kicked off in full force, but trust me, there are so many valuable lessons for the past year that can guide your next steps, right? Block out an hour or two and make it a fun, reflective process. Make sure you're putting it on your calendar, no excuses. And then next, you want to make sure that your goals are SMART. So that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And that is, we have that worksheet in the Google folder for you. And then keep those goals in front of you all year round. Hold yourself accountable, find someone or a group that can help you stay on track. And then lastly, don't be intimidated by communicating with your donors. Leverage technology like your data, your CRM data, email marketing to personalize and automate your outreach so that you can scale your communications effectively without losing that personal touch, and keep your donors engaged all year round, because stewardship equals support, right? And on that note, before we dive into Q&A, I am so excited to offer a 15% discount on the first month of Donorbox CRM. And this is your all-in-one solution for donor management. This is donor relationship building. So with features like the Mail Center for centralized communications, we have JAI to automate routine tasks and easily generate reports for you. We have amazing email marketing tools so that you can engage your supporters more effectively. You can organize your donors using groups and dynamic lists so that, again, you are segmenting your emails, different groups and different lists, right? And tracking every single interaction in your supporter timeline. And making all those recurring payments and offline transactions easy to track. If you are interested, you can click the link that is in the helpful links document that, again, is pinned in the Google folder that is clearly labeled CRM to learn more and get started. So go ahead and check that out. And I think we've got a fair amount of time for Q&A.
We do. So thank you so much, Jena. This is a really informative, very rich presentation. So yes, we do have some time for Q&A. A lot of questions have already come in. So we're going to start with those. But if you haven't asked one yet and you have a question you'd like for us to address, put it in the question box and hopefully we'll have enough time to get to yours as well. But just to begin, you had asked us earlier to share emojis with our reactions to how it feels to do fundraising this year. And aside from my melty face, there were a few answers, thumbs ups, a few smiley faces, but also a few answers that were more on the excited but anxious side of things. And in the comments, something that's come up a few times also is the difference between charities and nonprofits here in Canada. Charities are registered with the Canadian Revenue Agency, so they have to legally issue receipts, but nonprofits, which is actually the umbrella term that we use for either the nonprofit sector or social impact sector at large, do not have to and often don't. But this has also been reflected in a bit of a, I would almost call it generational divide, or a old school versus new school, because traditionally nonprofits that don't issue receipts tend to focus more on chasing government grants or doing their own fundraising, but don't think enough about diversifying the sources of financial support. So I thought that this could be a good way for us to dive into this conversation. If you could give us an overview of why it's important to diversify funding sources, or think a little bit more expansively about what it means to devote time to donor relationships, even when you're not legally required to issue receipts. So how would one maybe start by making the case to a board or team members, or basically how do we get started and why is that important?
That is a big question. First of all, thank you for that clarification. And again, because I am in the US, definitely take what I shared about tax receipts with a grain of salt, but we do have excellent professionally written resources for US and Canada in that folder. So to step back a little bit, you're asking about how to make the case to your stakeholders, to your board, about diversifying your funding sources and how you're engaging your donors in that. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, because we still
Yes.
see this problem, especially in these turbulent times, of the old
Yes.
thinking prevailing and the
Yes.
smaller nonprofits maybe staying a little bit behind and missing out on some opportunities.
Absolutely. And I have worked, and I'll start with this. I have worked for all sorts of different nonprofit organizations in my role, from a puppetry museum that was founded in the 60s to domestic violence shelters that were, newer within the past 10 years. So I've seen all sides of causes and practices and ways of thought, and certainly have done my fair share of convincing
Mhm.
to advocate for certain programs. The way that I like to approach things is with data, right? I can always come to my board with feelings. I feel like we should have a program for legacy gifts. But what is the data behind it, right? And that for me is irrefutable. So if there is, and I can't see the chat, but if there is a program that you are specifically interested in, right? Whether you are wanting to create a recurring giving program, right? You can tell your board, you can show the reports that the retention rate for one-time donors is 35% versus 78% for recurring donors. That is dependable revenue for your organization that you would otherwise be missing out on, right? Give them a scenario. If you bring in a one-time donor that gives maybe $100, maybe even a couple times a year, but then you bring in a monthly recurring donor that gives only $20 a month, but they're sticking around that much longer, that's money that they're missing out on, right? And same for the Great Wealth Transfer, for example. Just
Yep.
just looking at that data, right? Making the case in general. If you're one of those people who you're not sure if you want to diversify, the words of wisdom I can leave with you is you need to meet your donors where they are. If you feel like you are not hitting your fundraising goals, that might not be your donors, that may be your practices and where you're meeting them, right? How are people engaging with you and how are you meeting them there? So really evaluate that and look at how you can offer different opportunities to give through those various sources. That was a mouthful, and I could certainly go into this for quite a bit of time, and I'm not sure if that quite answered that, but I hope that.
It did, and it's a really big question, but I think we've also seen it in Canada and as a sector. For example, during COVID, we never know what might come at us, and just relying on
Mhm.
one or a handful of the
Yes,
old and true methods may not be enough to make us resilient. In Canada, we just
yes,
came out of a Canada Post strike, and that affected a
yes.
lot of donations in the mail. Government funding schemes may be tied to political cycles, so it really is important to think creatively and expansively about what it means to raise funds through donations in all the established ways, but in new and evolving ways. So thank you for that
Absolutely.
answer. Now let's
And
dive. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, that's right. Go for it.
So you talked also about the importance of digital engagement and staying authentic in our communications, but kind of tying both together now, our previous questions and this one, could you also talk a bit more about the rise of digital first fundraising and maybe what that its benefits might be over the more traditional funding way, fundraising channels that we've come to know?
Yes.
Or I could give you an example because one of our attendees wrote that they're looking to get more responses from potential donors, but they're calling and emailing, but they're not getting direct responses. Or they're also others are wondering, like, if I call them, will it seem like a scam or a junk call? Like, how do we engage in this era? But also,
Yes.
yeah, maybe are there benefits to thinking about a digital first approach and then maybe other channels?
Yes. That is a great question. And take a step back. If you are engaging with your donors through email, phone calls, whatever that may be, and you're not getting a response and you're not sure why that is, um, find ways. I mean, I think this is why having a donor survey is so important, right? You want to understand how they want to be communicated with. Some of the most successful nonprofits I've seen have an insane like Instagram community, and they are always engaging through Instagram. I am not like that. I would love a phone call, right? And it's not one size fits all. So if you can at any point send out a donor survey so that you can understand your donors' preferences and so that you can send out appeals in ways that resonate with how they like to give, because we have older generations that do want to send in a check, right? And we have younger generations that want to send you a stock, right? And you need to be prepared for all those scenarios. I don't think that getting rid of, even, phone calls or emails is needed, right? You stick with all these traditional. Direct mail still works. It is not dead. But as far as digital first goes, we live in a digital world. I'd say that most of us, even older generations, are engaging online in some capacity. But where it really comes the barrier is when they go to your website to give, right? You might have the best website in the world with the most important information that they really want to dig up and learn from. But where's your donate button? How long does it take for them to find it, right? It should take no more than 2 seconds for them to see that bright, shiny beacon, for them to click and land directly on your donation page, right? So what I always say is ask the oldest person you know and the youngest person you know. I have a 13-year-old brother, so he's the test, he's the guinea pig for a lot of the things that I do, to go through your giving process and identify any barriers. Do they know where their gift is going? Do you have an impact statement and a strong call to action on your donation page? Do they know how their $20 is making a difference? Did they get stuck having to put in all this extraneous information that you don't actually need, right? Do that. Do that with your staff. Do that with your grandma, whoever that may be. Identify those barriers so that people can give more quickly and easily. I mean, we saw, especially during COVID, those online donations became very, very important. I was working at a domestic violence shelter when everything shut down. We locked everything to keep our families safe and secure. Not a single person got sick, but that meant that we couldn't have people on site. We couldn't have people bring us checks, bring us donations, right? So leveraging even peer-to-peer made a huge difference for our programming.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. I will always advocate for digital first, but you need to make it a good experience for your donors and make sure that you're meeting them where they're at.
That is a very important point. Now, we've given you very wide-reaching questions so far, so let's continue with a quick one and a
Sure.
simpler one. Could you repeat the name of the person that you recommended folks follow on LinkedIn? They found many people with the
Yes.
same name and maybe their
Oh, sure.
organization to get
You
them.
know what? Let me go ahead and I'll make sure I get the right spelling for you. So it is Dana, D-N-A, or sorry, D-A-N-A, and
Mhm.
then it's Snyder. So she is the speaker, author, and host of Missions to Movements. Um, you'll find her, the monthly giving summit is her banner image, but she's a wonderful partner to DonorBox and someone that I learn from all the time. So Dana Snyder, hopefully you guys can find her.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that came up a lot, so I'm glad we got to cover that. And now we have just a few minutes, so maybe this might be the last question. You talked about the wealth transfer, and some folks are also curious in your
Mm-hmm.
research and in the work that you do, if you've come across any data or stories or information about maybe generational trends or changes in giving, and is the assumption that the older generations are more prone to donate to the bigger, more visible, established charities, for example, and then younger people are more cause driven? And if so, what could be a nice balance between those two, and how do we talk to the new donors?
Yes. I can't say definitively that that's the data that I have, but it is something that I've seen with many of our organizations on DonorBox's roster and beyond, right? I know how my grandma donates. She always donates to St. Jude's, right? Or I have a cousin that gives locally to her LGBTQ plus organizations, right? So I find that there is very much that divide, and it is a very keen observation. I think that many causes, and I don't want to say smaller organizations, but more focused causes versus, for example, St. Jude, which is an amazing, worthy cause, can, be connected in some way. And yes, that means that you're changing a habit. that means that you're changing a habit for someone who may have given to this specific organization all the time. But what you need to do is work on a strong case for support. Your cause is worthy, and maybe they just need to learn about it. They need to know what it is, right? So I will actually, so I don't take up too much time, in the Google folder, I will go in right after this call and I will add in my case for support template. But basically, this is saying, what you do that is unique from any other organization, how a certain dollar amount will solve a certain problem or go towards a certain vision of something, right? And it will make you stand out completely and make it absolutely clear what people need to do to make an impact, right? And all you can do, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. I've heard from so many organizations, like, my legacy givers were saying they were just waiting for me to ask. They had this, close to their heart. They wanted to give and leave a legacy, but we never asked them, right? If you don't ask, the answer is always no, but have a strong case for support when you're doing so. So I will add that to the folder for you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. So that's all the time that we have for today. So thank you again, Jena, for sharing your knowledge with us. And thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to join us. So just a reminder that yes, we will share the recording with you. We'll be posting also the links to this Google folder when we send you the follow-up email with the recording. And check out our blog, because we'll be centralizing everything in a post on our website next week as well. So you can share that with your colleagues or your network, and hopefully take lots and lots of inspiration to start 2025 in a strong and effective way. So thanks again, everyone, and hope to see you at the next event. Bye. Bye, Jena.
Thanks, everyone.